Hello, everyone. Welcome on in this noontime presentation from UbiSim. Thanks for being with us today, or I should say noontime where I'm at. So before we get started, I just have a few housekeeping notes. First, I want everybody to take a minute to grab a pen and some type of paper to write on. We have a very interactive activity today, and you'll want to have these things handy. So take a minute to grab them right now while I am finishing up with our housekeeping. So we have three tabs in here, and we're primarily going to be using two of them today. We will be using the chat tab and the Q&A tab. So right now, let's try out that chat tab and have everybody, if you would kindly go and tell us where you are from and enter that into the chat tab. The other tab that we have is Q&A, and our Q&A tab is for answers or questions, I should say, for our speaker. So if you have specific questions for our speaker, go ahead and put them in the Q&A tab, and we will get to them as we can throughout the webinar. It's great. I start to see people coming in from all over the country. We have Utah, Texas, Illinois, Ohio. Phenomenal. Keep it coming. So we're going to use this time today to re-engage with our sense of joy. Okay, it's so important that we do some things for ourselves. And so the next 45 minutes is just that. It's time for us. So while we're talking about us, I'll tell you a little bit about me. My name is Maggie Major, and I am the nursing simulation consultant here at UbiSim. I have a diverse background, as well as being a nurse. I have a degree in education and in educational technology. In addition to working as a nurse, I've worked as a nurse aid program coordinator, and I'm a long-time faculty member at Harrisburg Area Community College, which is located right down the street from me in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. So any Pennsylvania people might be familiar with that. So far, I haven't seen any I see Erie, Pennsylvania on here. So at least we have one fellow Pennsylvanian on there. A special welcome to all of you. I'll see North Carolina, Kansas, Tennessee. Keep coming and letting us know where you are from. You may continue to post your thoughts throughout the webinar in the chat. And again, a reminder, please put your questions for us in the Q&A tab. Just saw sunny Florida. I just got back from there on Sunday. I'm hoping the wind has calmed down for you in sunny Florida. All right, so before we get underway, I'd like to take a minute to introduce you to UbiSim, since for some of you, it might be the first time you've joined us for one of our webinars. We like to say that UbiSim is where nursing practice gets real. Our immersive virtual reality simulation platform is the world's first designed by nurses and for nurses. UbiSim's intuitive and customizable experience empowers learners to safely develop clinical judgment skills, confidence, and at heart for patient-centric care. If you'll indulge me for a minute, I have a 30-second video I'd like to share that describes who we are and what we do. So we'll play that for you now. I love that video. In fact, every time I see it, I just want to go jump over and put my headset on and get back into it. I also want to say to you, though, that through 2025, UbiSim is really stepping up with our mission to bring attention and advocacy to that critical role that we play as nurse educators. And that's part of our reason for hosting this joy-centered event today. We'll be doing our best to empower nurse educators with solutions like our VR simulations and to foster support that address the challenges that we face through webinars like this one, shareable content, and our community. And now it's my pleasure to introduce to you today's special guest speaker, Tara Rynders. Many of us already know her as the dancing nurse from following her on social media, but I'd like to share a little bit more about her background. She is certified as an advanced grief recovery specialist, as well as a keynote speaker, an author, and is the executive director of the Art and Heart of Healthcare. Her work has been recognized with many awards, including the Colorado Nightingale Luminary Award, the Oncology Nursing Foundation's Mara Morganson Flaherty Memorial Lecture Award, a Blade of Grass Fellowship, a Hamilton Award from the National Organization for Arts and Health, and the EY Next Wave Leader Award. She has been speaking to audiences around the world, sharing her signature SHINE framework that she created to combine her passions of nursing and dance to create spaces of joy so that nurses can shine as they remember and reflect back on the brilliant and resilient humans they already are. I am personally thrilled to have Tara speaking with us today. So welcome to the webinar, Tara.
Thank you, Maggie. Thank you so much for having me, everyone. It's so nice to be here and be in this space. Thank you, UbiSim, for all your work and for inviting me here. It's a pleasure. Today, I'd like to invite you into a space of joy, into a space of wonder, a space of togetherness. And when we leave, my hope is that you walk away with the understanding that joy is a choice and that it is a practice, and that daily we can choose or not choose to experience joy. So let's talk first about the 3 things that are important to remember. And to do this, I want to start by sharing that as a dancing nurse, I create spaces of joy and wonder. And to do this, I bring in dance and art and play, and I can explain it to you, but I'd really rather you first watch it and see it and experience it yourself. So I'm going to invite a short video for you to see what it looks like to experience dance through movement with nurses. So I hope that was helpful in giving you an idea of what I say when I bring dance into healthcare spaces and create spaces of joy with one another. It's really beautiful to see how much the joy exists in being together, in being with one another. So I am the executive director of the Art and Heart of Healthcare, which is a company that I started where we create workshops and coaching, and we offer spaces for healthcare providers to feel seen and heard and cared for. And we're really based in this theory of rebrilliancy. So rebrilliancy is reflecting back the brilliant and resilient humans we already are. So we aren't asking you to be more resilient or to bounce back. We believe that you are resilient and you are brilliant, and that our work is to create systems and spaces that reflect back who you truly are. And we have an incredible team, so I would be remiss to not share the incredible humans that I get the chance to work with daily. Ashley Cornelius, who is the Poet Laureate of Colorado Springs, which is basically like she's the president of poetry. I learn so much from her every day. And Dr. Claire Hamor has his PhD in applied theater. He works in spaces in healthcare, but also in incarcerated spaces, creating justice and joy. So this is a poem that I love that I'd like to share. I sometimes forget that I was created for joy. My mind is too busy. My heart is too heavy for me to remember that I have been called to dance the sacred dance of life. I was created to smile, to love, to be lifted up, and to lift others up. O sacred one, untangle my feet from all that ensnares. Free my soul that we might dance, and that our dancing might be contagious. Hafiz. So my hope is that today, in this short time that we have together, that we can remember what it is that brings us joy and why it's important. So 3 things that I would like to just share before we jump into doing an interactive exercise together around joy is that joy is not the absence of grief, but joy is what rises up in us when we care for one another in our struggle. So I believe that joy has this sister that doesn't get a lot of airtime, that doesn't really get talked about, sometimes gets hidden, but her name is grief. And that when we are able to feel our grief, we are also then able to feel our joy. And the way that I figured this out for myself is that when my sister was 26, she called me in the morning. She said, Tara, I'm having a really bad headache. I don't know what's going on. It's the worst headache of my life. I said, and I lived in a different city, so I told her to go to the ER and to get it checked out. And by the time I called her 2 hours later, she couldn't speak, and all she could do was moan. And so that same day, I flew out to Reno, where she was at, and I was in Colorado. And when I got to her, she was in the ICU, and she couldn't move, and she could barely keep her eyes open. So I spent the rest of my days with my sister, living in her ICU room. I was actually getting my master's in dance at the time and was going part-time as a nurse. And so I stopped my program, took care of my sister, lived with her in her rehab room. And as she began to wake up, every morning she would open her eyes and she would remember what happened to her. And she would just start to howl. And her howl, it sounded like it was coming from the pit of her belly. And that was how she would cry. She would just howl, and I would just hold her. And this would take hours for her to process. But the beautiful thing was that at nighttime, I would play her favorite song, Hannah Montana, Party in the USA. It's a good song, you have to admit. And I would dance around her room like a crazy woman, just to make her laugh. And when she would laugh, it was that same howls. It sounded almost like her howling for her cries were the exact same sound as when she was laughing. And that the depths of where our grief and joy come from are the same part of our body. And so the more that I allowed her, and she allowed herself to just cry, and I just would cry and be with her in the morning, the more she would laugh at night, so that the depths that she allowed herself to grieve were the depths that she allowed herself to experience joy. And what was also so beautiful about this is that when I was dancing, I felt like if I could just move as freely as possible in my body, that maybe she would also be able to feel some of that. And I could see it in her eyes. I could see a freedom, because our bodies don't forget joy. Our bodies remember what it feels like to move and to be free, even when our minds aren't remembering, and that we need each other to help remind each other what joy feels like. And there's a word for this. It's called limbic resonance, which is really beautiful when somebody else feels what we're experiencing, because we're so connected with one another. And then lastly, in this situation with my sister, we found joy in each other, that we needed to be together, that we heal in relationship. The second thing is that joy is a choice. So the first, joy is not the absence of grief, but what rises up when we choose to care for each other. Joy is a choice, and our joy impacts others. So just as we choose to go out or stay home, we can also choose to open our hearts up to joy. Or if we're not having it, we can say, I don't want to, that we have a choice to do this. And that too, as we're choosing to look up and to see the world around us, because joy is everywhere. It's the way the trees dance in the wind. It's watching a little caterpillar move on the ground. And that we have this ability to become a sacred observer, that we can actually watch the world and be able to find joy within it. I realize that I have twins who are 9 years old, and I spend so much of my mornings like task mastering them, like, come on, let's go, put your shoes on, did you brush your teeth, here, did you pack your lunch, here's this, da, da, da. Can I sign your planner, all the things that have to get done, all the tasks, and that energy can carry out through the day and through the night with them, and that I sometimes forget to just watch and observe how incredible my children are. Just watch them be little humans and find joy in that observation. So as we look for joy, think about being the sacred observer, to just take it in. And lastly, finding joy in the transitions. Like we rush from one thing to the other. So how do we find joy in going from one thing to the other and kind of squeezing out as much as we can out of each moment? So I worked in the ER for over 20 years, and I remember every time I'd go see a patient, I was like kind of scared, if I just had to tell them something, to go too far into their room, because I felt like this was going to be a long experience. I had like 1 foot in and 1 foot out, and I'd be kind of like, yes, here's the thing, your medicine's coming, and I like my whole body's trying to leave, and so I've learned to be rushed in my transitions, and now I love transitions because there are moments where we can actually really connect and find joy in transitioning from one thing to the other. Lastly, I'll say about transitions, my kids were having like this breakdown. They didn't want to eat lunch yet. They were working on schoolwork and they were like really in it. And so I just started rolling like a caterpillar around them. And then finally they started laughing and started rolling with me. And eventually I rolled them to where their food was. And so how do we create joy in transitioning in spaces and make it playful? So joy is also an act of receiving. I think for me as a nurse, and I wonder if this rings true for some of you, is that sometimes receiving the care can be tricky. And when my twins were 6 months old, I found myself in excruciating pain, and I drove myself to the hospital because that's what nurses do, but I wasn't going to wake up my sleeping twins. And when I got there, I realized that I was having an ectopic pregnancy. And I got admitted, and I just was watching my stomach distending, and the pain was just getting worse and worse and worse. And I called my nurse in and I said, I'm feeling weak, I'm feeling dizzy, I need to go to surgery. And then all of a sudden, everything just went black. I was passed out, but I could still hear everything that was happening. And she called a code yellow and got all the nurses and everybody in the room. And I remember somebody saying, does she have any family? And I remember thinking, yes, I do. I have these little babies and I have this husband that I have to get home to. And in the midst of all this chaos, she comes over and she grabs my hand and she says, I'm here and you're going to be okay. And I remember like my first instinct was like, I wanted to pull away. Like, I didn't want her to be caring for me. It felt so just felt weird. It didn't feel right. I wanted to stand up and say, I'm okay. I got this. I don't need you to care for me. I'm good. And I realized that I had spent a large part of my life rejecting care, and that this really wasn't about just being embarrassed, but about maybe this idea or this lifetime of really not fully realizing how worthy I was to receive care, and that my worth was tied to my identity and being the one always giving, the one always taking care of everybody else, and even to the point of betraying my own needs in the process. And so I remember in that moment thinking, Tara, you could be dying. You may never see your children. Will you just let somebody care for you? And I did. And that was the moment of allowing myself to receive that changed the trajectory of my career. That's why I work with nurses and why I bring them joy, because it's so important to find joy. We have to be open to receive. We have to soften first. I softened and held her hand. So just remembering, as you think about joy, it's not the absence of grief. It's not toxic positivity. It's acknowledging the grief and receiving care from others. It's a choice. You can even schedule joy into your life, and to remember to look up. And that joy is an act of receiving care. Think about the ways that you already receive and continue just to pour into those spaces. So now I'm excited for us to do some work just mining some of that joy that already exists in our bodies and hearts, and to really take a moment to be the sacred observer of our lives and create a joy blueprint and a joy poem that'll help us be able to look back on it when we're feeling that it just seems impossible to choose joy in the moment. So this will be helpful, are my hopes. So if you don't have a pen and paper, go ahead and grab one. And also, if you don't have one accessible, you can just write this on your computer, or however you'd like to do it. Or just take note, and you can always go back to this. So first, grab your piece of paper, and you're going to draw a line at the very bottom going across the piece of paper. This is the earth. This is the ground. And then underneath this line is the soil. So in the soil, I want you just to put like a couple of rocks or like circles to represent those. And now you're going to draw 3 stems, and watch this to see 3 lines going up. Those are going to be stems. On each stem, I'm going to invite you to draw a flower with some bigger petals, because you're going to be writing in them. And you're going to do that on each of the stems. So it should look something like this. 3 flowers, a line for the earth and the soil underneath with 3 rocks in it. Now in the first flower, in the circle in the middle, I invite you to write the word who. And I'm going to turn on just a little bit of music for us. And let's take a moment together to think about who brings us joy. Who in your life brings you joy? And as you think of those people, go ahead and write their names in each one of the petals. Who brings you joy? So we have who, and then in the next flower, I'm going to have you write what. What brings you joy? Is it going for walks? Is it reading a book? Is it hiking? Is it biking? Is it dancing? Is it taking a bath? Is it staying in bed? What brings you joy? So you have who in the first, what, and then the last flower is where. Where do you find joy? This could be in the mountains, in nature, at the club, at your grandmother's house, at home. Where do you find joy? So you have who, what, and where. Let's go back to the who. And I want you to think about what it feels like to be with these people. So you're going to actually just choose one person. So whoever you choose, what does it feel like to be with this person? So I chose my daughter, and I'm thinking of the moments that I have in the morning with her when I'm like cheek to cheek and we're just cuddling. And so I might write, and I'll write this along the stem. So in my mind, I'm thinking my joy feels like cheek to cheek with my daughter in the early morning, with early morning snuggles. What does it feel like? What's the touch? So we're thinking about our senses now. Who brings you joy, and what does it feel like to be with them? Like the actual literal touch about it. And you can write that along your stem here. Let's move on to what. What brings you joy? And I want you to think about sound. So sounds that come, so choosing one part of your what, whether it's, for me, it was dancing, or walking. What sound do I associate with those? And I love walking to get the newspaper in the morning. So for me, it's like this repetitive walking, snapping, flipping, tapping on the concrete as I move to get the newspaper. What are the sounds associated with this space of what brings you joy? And you can go ahead and write that along your stem. So you have who and what it feels like, what it sounds like to be in this place, doing this activity. And then lastly, where. And I want you to think about the smells. So as you choose one space or location that brings you joy, what are the smells associated with that? What does it smell like to be in this place? I think I did some examples of wafting smells of chicken burning the insides of my nose with nourishment and longing for a hot meal as I enter my mother's home. What are the smells that are associated with your where? Now we're going to bring it all together for a poem. Before we do that, I want to invite you to the soil. Because something that I think is really important that we're not always aware of or thinking about is, how do we know that we need more joy? What are our signs? What comes up for us? And sometimes when I find myself rushing for one thing, like I said, or feeling really controlling over things, I realize that those are some rocks in my soil and just spaces to pay attention to, of like, oh, I think I need to schedule some joy right now. So just take a minute to write in these circles, what are some signs or some things that may come up for you that you're like, okay, I hear you. I think I need some more joy in my life. And these are just gentle reminders to give yourself lots of compassion around when these things pop up, but reminders of, oh, okay, I think I need some joy. All right, let's bring it all together. So I'm going to invite you to, in the chat, if you feel comfortable, sharing your poem, and I will read it. So just know that it'll be read out loud. And you can start it off with typing in, "This is my joy." So that is the title, "This is my joy." And then I will put mine in. And as you write it in, you're going to write in what it feels like, sounds like, and smells like. So the examples that you gave for each one of the who, what, and where. So this is my joy. And then at the end, say this again. This is my joy. So this is an example. I'm putting in my who, which is my daughter, and how it felt to be with her. I'm putting in my space, or what I like to do, which is walking in the mornings to get the newspaper, and what that sounds like. And then I'm writing where I like to go, and that's to be mountain biking after a rain, and what it smells like. And then at the end, this is my joy. So take just a few moments. We would love, and whatever happens or whatever you created is perfect. And go ahead and put it in the chat for us. We would love to see it, because you know what? My joy can beget your joy. And as we share our joy, that's part of finding joy in one another. I see a couple coming in. Thank you. I'll go ahead and start reading these. This is my joy, my walk and yap sesh with my friend in a warm ray of sunshine, the comfort of her voice and the whiz of the city. We make our way toward the breath of fresh air from the trees in the park. This is my joy. Beautiful, Janelle. Thank you. Chantal, and I'm sorry if I mispronounce your names. This is my joy. Feels like morning snuggles, sounds like birds and breeze, smells like fresh, crisp air. This is my joy. Beautiful, Chantal. Katrina. This is my joy. Joy feels like belonging and unconditional love. It sounds like birds chirping and soft music in the background. It smells like cookies, bubble bath, and water. This is my joy. Beautiful. I'll wait just another moment. I invite you to share, even if it's just one word or one phrase. And go ahead and invite it here and share it with each other, because it's so inspiring to see others' joy. All right. See a couple more. From Marie, this is my joy, listening to my son's voice when he talks about his excitement about life. It sounds like comfortable silence interrupted by the sounds of nature. It smells like cool, fresh air. This is my joy, having coffee with Julia at the top of the mountain. Sounds like wind and nails tapping on water bottles. Smells like earth and leaves. This is my joy. Beautiful. Larissa, my kids' laughter going to the gym and smell of the beach. Beautiful, Larissa. Andrea, this is my joy, the warmth of snuggling with my daughters at bedtime, laughing with my family as we play board games. The smell of old books and new flavors in a new small town. I love these. Erin, my joy feels like the breeze is on my face off the ocean. Sounds like the crash of waves and smells like the salts of the sea. This is my joy. This is going to make me cry. I don't think we spend this much time talking about our joy, especially with all that is happening in this world. This is my joy, hearing the squeals of my granddaughter, Abby's bare feet as she runs toward me, greeting me at the door. The hum and whirl of the motor of my KitchenAid mixer as the ingredients come together for a loaf of bread. The smell of fresh baked sourdough bread and the melted peanut butter covering Abby's cheeks and lips. Beautiful, Maggie. Adriana, this is my joy. Feels like sticky paint and Play-Doh and little hands. Sounds like rain on the rooftops. Smells like fresh baked bread on a Sunday afternoon. This is my joy. That's beautiful. Tiffany, this is my joy. Cheek to cheek with squishy cheeks, cozy and safe cuddles. It sounds like birds chirping, turning pages, running water, laughter and quiet. Smells like candles, clean air, and baked goods. This is my joy. Thank you, Tiffany. I am smiling as I'm reading these. I know, me too. Yes, I'm smiling, have tears in my eyes. All of these are so lovely. Who cut an onion? This is my joy. Let's see. Touching hands, gentle leg squeezes, kisses and hugs, walking while feeling the wind blow by and hearing birds chirping in the trees while cars bustle by. I'm feeling limbic resonance, yes. Christy, this is my joy, walking with my mom along a nature path, her hand holding onto my arm as we laugh and cry together, birds singing, leaves rustling, steps falling, as I run along familiar or new trails yet to be discovered. Crisp air filling my lungs with nourishing oxygen, the smell of nature evolving with the seasons, moving from woods to water to mountains and through city streets. This is my joy. So beautiful. Thank you, Christy. So many beautiful moments. Thank you all for sharing. Feel free, there's still time if you want to put a couple in. I think it's really beautiful to note how much joy and beauty is around us at all times. And that maybe part of this is just slowing down and taking the time to see what's already in front of us, to see what's already happening and putting our time and energy there. Remembering that we're so capable of having joy and that it's a choice to choose this, to choose to see and to remember and to reflect. So I invite you to schedule in time for joy, but also schedule in joy for the friends that you work with at work. Schedule in like a quick, let's go grab coffee, or listen, this is a crazy day. Let's just look at each other and not say a word because we know how crazy this is. And just by the looks in our eyes, we'll probably start laughing because we don't ever take the time to actually even see each other. Like, it can be really simple and it can be really silly. You can put on your favorite song and dance to it for 30 seconds, invite the whole team. I used to do all of these crazy things all the time in the ER, even in the midst of crazy chaos. And, people thought they didn't like necessarily join in right away, but after a while they did, because joy is contagious and people eventually want to be part of it. So I invite you to think creatively of ways to bring in joy. All right, friends, I'm going to just ask you as we close, just to close your eyes for a moment. And with your eyes closed, find your feet just planted firmly on the ground. Think back to what you remember, some of the poems, what things stood out to you, and just let that flow through your body. Let it seep into your bones. What this moment feels like to remember collective joy with one another. And take 2 deep breaths. Just in your own time, really embedding that joy. And with your eyes closed, I want you to think of joy not as something separate from you, but something that lives in your body, in your cells. That as your heart is beating, it's actually jumping in joy. And as your blood rushes through your veins, it's like a river on a rainy day prancing over and under the rocks. That the food you ingest is offering nourishment and replenishing your energy and your capacity for joy. Ultimately, your joy escapes your lips as you exhale and then re-enters every time you inhale. That sweet joy hanging in the oxygen all around you. Taking one last deep breath in together, just allowing the joy to fill every cell of your body and exhaling it out to the world. To everyone here in this space together and in this experience. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Thank you, friends. I hope you realize the incredible creativity that you hold inside of you and the joy that already exists.
Oh, thank you, Tara. We did have a question, and Andrea was asking, Andrea is doing a faculty development presentation soon and was wondering if it's okay to use your flower activity for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, please do. I would love to. Maggie's going to share my contact information, so I would love to hear, Andrea, on how it went and what, how that experience was for you leading it. So yeah, absolutely. Please, this is for all, spreading the joy as much as we can.
Super, super. So, as we wrap up here, I do want to say thank you to everyone for attending and get my thank you slide up here. And, Tara, I also know that you have a new offering coming up. Would you like to take a minute or two to tell us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I have it's called the Creative Care Journey, and it's a 12-week experience where we dive into our creative joy and also our grief. And we work collectively to unravel that which is entangling us. So, from the poem and preventing us from experiencing joy. And we use the arts and play and poetry and movement to do this. And it's a small group, so space is limited. And we have a couple, I think like 2 or 3 spots left, and we'll be starting in April. And alongside that, you'll get 2 sessions with me where we actually one-on-one work to integrate whatever you're experiencing and whatever your needs are. We are able to talk about it, whether you're going through a big transition or you're looking to bring more creativity into your presentations like Andrea is. I'll just really be your support and your guide to help that transition or whatever it is that you need. And then I also do workshops, as you saw in the video. So if there's any workshops that your teams need or are desiring to get playful and have fun and just release a little bit together and create spaces of belonging, and also keynote speaking. So would love to be part of your communities. Thanks for sharing or asking, Maggie.
You are welcome. Thank you so much. And we only have about a minute left. If you have any more questions or anything, I was checking. I didn't see any more in the Q&A, but just in case, I will look through and I don't see any. We will get Tara's contact information posted it will be in our follow-up information, as well as we can post it on our community in UbiSim and Labster. Thank you so much, Tara, and thank you everyone for joining us today.